Hey, you guys, Ras out here in Singapore. I'm so glad to be here on the Night Owl podcast once again. And honestly, today, it's been one of those meh days. Not good or bad, just kind of like, I don't know, I kind of fumbled through it. It started off really great, I'm not gonna lie. It started off brilliantly. I had a music class with my great aunt, and it was a very productive hour this morning, and I felt really good about that because I woke up at the ass crack of dawn. I woke up at 7 o'clock for an 8 o'clock class because it's 8 p.m. in the US East Coast. And yeah, sang for a complete hour, felt pretty good about it, and just, excited about the prospect of just, trying to brush up some old skills. And from there, I decided to finish up a couple more requests. I had a couple of people ask me if I would sing samples for them, just so they have an idea of my voice and the range or whatever. And got that knocked out the way. We ended up harassing each other for a little while. Baby girl and I had breakfast, and she got her homework done. I got a little bit of studying done. I've been slack on the studying thing, man, for real. Like, it's not been the kind of progress that I would like to make. And I tried to get through one whole lecture, but I couldn't. I had to stop in between because sometimes when it's a lecture, I tend to fall asleep. I feel like I'm falling asleep because I don't get a chance to really like interact or ask questions. And I kind of need that sometimes. So I had to stop it and pause and take a break or whatever. I ended up cooking, and then I had a couple client calls and got back to work basically. So it's been one of those meh days. I'm grateful that I get a chance to work from home every day, and I feel good about the work that I'm putting out there. But I know that certain aspects of my work have kind of stalled as well. So, as much as I love this podcast, I do create as often as I possibly can. Sometimes I knock out 3, 4 episodes in a day. Sometimes it's one in a couple of days. I'm working on it though, and it's mostly when I do feel inspired and do feel like called to put a message out there for everybody. So right now, as I'm sitting back looking over the day and kind of pondering, what did I do? What did I really get done today? I thought I'd sit down and discuss divorce with you because I had a chance to kind of talk about divorce a little bit today. So with that in mind, I don't think I've actually ever gone back and talked about the many emotions and wounds that kind of opened up when I went through my divorce. So I thought I'd talk about that real quick, if that's okay with y'all. For those of you who do or don't know, I left my husband in 2013, moved halfway around the world with my toddler. She was about 2 years old at the time. And luckily for me, my grandparents were still alive. My mom was still in Singapore. And I came back here because I was born here, and my mom's entire side of the family is still here. So this is the biggest concentration of my blood relatives in one country. And I thought, okay, well, where else should I start over? It would be better here because these people could help me remember who I am, how I grew up, what I was like as a kid, so I can kind of get back to being me. But what I don't think I've actually mentioned it, maybe in bits and pieces, but not really as the concept of divorce itself. I don't think I've actually really gone through the kinds of emotions I had to deal with at the time. So I figured I'd open that up a little bit so you can have an idea of the things that may seem normal or abnormal to you, depending on where in your life you are. And please, by all means, understand this is something that I went through on my own. I did not have a therapist to help me. I didn't have anyone to kind of like talk to about it because no one really understood. People would come talk to me because they were thinking about getting into a situation where they're going to, divorce their husband or wife or whatever, but they weren't willing to talk about what happened, how they got there, what were the emotions, what does this all mean to them? And I kind of want to go through that a little bit today. For me, when I first decided to leave, that was a big decision in and of itself. And the reason I decided is because I realized just how much my kids were watching. And I say kids plural because my stepkids are my kids. I raised them. I was with them for 7, almost 8 years. And they're my kids. They are definitely my kids. I have wiped blood, sweat, and tears off of their face. I have fed them. I have learned what they like and don't like. I've discovered, who they are, how they learn, what they prefer in life, what their dreams and aspirations are, what their skill sets are. They are my kids. Trust me, they are my kids. But in the course of discovering that they are my kids and that I can and am able to take care of someone else's children and raise them as my own, I discovered a lot about myself. But nothing more shocking than I had become exactly what my mom was, and I had recreated a similar situation that my mom had in her marriage, where she didn't really have much of a say. She kind of did what she was told, and she was quiet for the most part, and I didn't want that for my kids. I wanted them to understand that it's okay to speak up. It's okay to say no. It's okay to draw lines and boundaries, tell somebody that you're not comfortable doing something that they're asking you to do, offer an alternate solution even. Like any of those discussion things, I wanted to make sure my kids knew that was okay. That is normal. That is okay. Because in a situation where it's not okay, there is a control somewhere that you need to worry about. So I needed to let them know, hey, it's not about whether I disappoint my husband anymore. It's more about how do my kids see me? What are they learning by my behavior? And that's where I decided to stop this generational habit that was being passed down from my mom to me. So that was where it started. And I decided, you know what, I'm not going to leave right away. Maybe a little bit of distance would be a good thing. Let me go back home and be with my family for a little while so that I can heal first and see how he deals with the distance. Well, guess what? Within a week of me leaving, I called to check in on him and see how he was doing and just, see how everyone was faring without me in the house. And he mentioned that he had filed for separation. So I said, all right, well, I guess this is a done deal because he's already started moving paperwork, like by law. So I stopped worrying about how I was going to get back home, what I was going to do, how I was going to face him, how I was going to rebuild my life. And I figured out, okay, well, if that's the way he's going to respond, I'm just going to start building here. And as angry as I was when I found out he had filed separation, that didn't mean that I didn't go through that crazy eight. I went through the crazy eight so many times, it was like a loop-de-loop roller coaster, I swear. And by the crazy eight, I mean it's this concept that Tony Robbins talks about where you go through this feeling of helplessness, like you're really not good enough, and woe is me, I'm just useless and worthless, and that's why my marriage didn't work. And when I got tired of feeling that way, I got pissed off. Pissed off with a fierceness that I was like, you know what, fuck that. I'm not trying to be anybody's bitch. I'm not trying to roll over and do what I'm told every time. I have a complete set of skills that will enable me to live independently going forward. I don't need a man. Who said I need a man, right? I have a degree. I have job skills. I've been in so many different job work fields that I could pretty much MacGyver my way into any job if I really wanted to. So I felt good about myself, and that anger kind of pushed me to do something. That was the masculine energy in me that was kind of kicking my ass a little bit, like, let's go do something. Let's go do something. And after a while, I'd get tired, or it would get quiet, and I would notice the quiet, and I would get worried and scared and be like, no, but you know what? I swore I wouldn't fail this marriage, and I swore that I'd be there for the kids, and here I am failing them, and I go back through that cycle again. So this crazy eight got a real hold of me, and I had to face a couple of truths, and it was honestly, Scandal got me through a lot of it. I binge watched Scandal, and I identified with the president's wife, actually. And I felt like, you know what, I'm standing here, I'm doing all this stuff, I'm trying to, make things right, I'm trying to lay the path for him and clear the path for him and make sure that he has everything he needs to be president, and he's not respecting me at all. He's not, he's not understanding me, he's kind of overlooking me, and I guess I just don't do it for him anymore. And I felt really quite miserable because at the time, I was maybe 46, 47 kilos, and it's the smallest I've ever been. I was still breastfeeding the kid, so I was losing weight left and right. I did not feel like I was worthy of anything, and when I don't feel worthy, I tend not to eat. I don't have an appetite, so I wasn't eating, I wasn't gaining weight, I was losing weight, and I felt ugly. Because this is not the body that I was used to, right? It's not that I have some voluptuous body or anything, but I felt pretty solid most days. I felt like I took up some space, and I was feeling like more like a woman that was kind of slowly disappearing, and I felt ugly, and it added to that feeling of desperation and that hopelessness and that despair that kind of took over on one end of this crazy eight. So I had, I guess you may call, an identity crisis. And I had to really decide for myself, well, what am I going to do from here? What can I control? He's already set the paperwork in motion. Eventually he's going to divorce me, and okay, fine. While I had plans to leave him, it still hurt when he went through with the paperwork before I was ready. It's almost like in high school you try to break up with the guy before they break up with you because, at least you had the last word, and then it's on your terms. It's not like you're being rejected by somebody else, right? But I felt rejected anyway. Even though I had put the things in motion by physically removing myself from the United States, I still felt like I was being rejected on some level because he put the paperwork through, and I didn't think it was, that serious. And then, of course, the news came that he had moved some girl into the house, which means, blind as I was, she was on the side the whole time, and I had no idea. I was more concerned with the kids and taking care of the house, and I didn't question him. When he went out to do work, I did not question where he was going. I didn't have time for that. I had other things I needed to take care of. So I just let it be. So when the news came, it kind of like took me out of the knees, and I felt even worse for a while. Just when I thought I was building back, I felt really, really shitty. And for a while, it was like, I don't want to step out of my room. And it took me a while to understand that, yes, the sadness and the depression was normal. I had to go through the grief. I was grieving over a life that I no longer had. I was grieving over a relationship that I no longer had. And embracing this new whatever was not pretty at all. I remember going down to buy groceries for the house, and I would wonder, oh my gosh, I should buy this because he would love this, and I could make this because it was his favorite dish. And I had to remind myself, no, you don't have that life anymore. You don't do that anymore. You don't have to answer to him. You don't have to ask his permission. You don't have to please him in any shape or form. You don't have to buy his favorite snacks or his favorite foods at all. And that left a gap in my life. Same thing with, what we do on a regular basis, like, take baby girl to school. Well, at the time she wasn't going to school, but I would go to work. And when I got home from work, how would I spend time? And it became this game of, how do I fill the time so I'm not left to my own thoughts? Like, I'm not left alone with my thoughts, because they were very loud and very overwhelming. And it was kind of like a magnet back towards that figure eight, that crazy eight, where I'd go through the depression and the anger and the depression and the anger. And I was trying really hard to avoid that because the cycle was just very draining. So I would try to fill my time with spending time with my grandparents, or talking to my mother, or trying to learn new recipes in the kitchen with the maids, or playing with my daughter, or homeschooling her, because she was, like I said, only 2 years old, and I was trying really hard to get her to do, fine motor skills and identifying colors and knowing numbers, like basic little things that I'd always been researching to homeschool, because honestly, when I met my stepdaughter, she was only 3, and I homeschooled her, and I taught her through everything that she needed for school. And then I was kind of like, old pro it was old hat by the time baby girl was born. So I was ready for that. But these are the things I had to learn. I had to learn to fill up those spaces that were left by where my husband used to be, or where thoughts of my husband used to be, or planning for my husband and my stepkids used to be, because I didn't have that anymore. I didn't have the same old places that we used to go, which was a blessing. I'd have to sit in a parking space and remember the good times we had there and start crying. It was nothing like that. But shopping was definitely difficult. Talking to them, because I did keep in touch for a while there, very regularly, because I missed my kids, and my kids missed me, and I didn't really talk to Dad that much. I didn't talk to him that much at all, but I wanted to talk to the kids a lot, and that hurt. It hurt because it reminded me every time I spoke to them, when they would say they missed me, or they missed my food, or, when am I coming home? And I hadn't yet told them that I'm not coming home. So that was really, really hard on me. I had to discover who I was, suddenly, where I didn't have to watch what I say, watch where I'm going, check in wherever I am, make sure I had witnesses to prove that I was where I said I was. I didn't have that anymore. Suddenly I was free from all of those rules and regulations. I didn't have to, like I said, I didn't have to ask for permission. If I wanted to go out, I could go out. If I wanted to stay late a little bit after work, as long as I knew that, my mom or my grandparents or someone was home to take care of baby girl, I could just let my mom know, and it would be okay. I did not have to check it. I didn't have to ask for permission and wait for permission. I didn't have to do any of that. And that was scary too, because I was also in a country where I didn't have any friends or people I knew. So I had to go through the fact-checking stage of testing out and seeing who was friend-worthy and who wasn't. I had to discover what I could and couldn't do on my own. What did I enjoy doing? I had no idea. I was running a household for like 8 years. And before that, I was in a relationship for another 8 years. And that's half my life gone. So when I wasn't taking care of my brothers and making sure things were smooth for my schoolwork, I went to college, fell in love, broke up, got married, was in love for a while, broke up, and here I am brand new all over again. And I have no idea who I am, no idea what I like. And that was really, really scary for me, because I was worried about how people would see me. Would they judge the way I was dressing? Would they judge if I went to a bar, or went by myself to do anything. Like, what would people say? How would I be perceived? And I had to go through that whole teenage thing again, where I was trying to discover who I was. Went through a few different jobs because I was learning to say no at the jobs and learning to explain that if you're going to hire me based on a specific set of skills, I'm hoping you're going to let me use those skills and not tell me what to do once I get into the job. So that was the difficulty here in Singapore, because they have their own way of doing things, and that was not what I was used to. I had to figure out what I loved more than anything else, as in like my passion, my purpose. And a lot of that came on the side of the job that I was doing. A lot of it started with hospitality all over again, counseling people, hearing people out, making sure that, I made my guests feel safe and remembered. I made them feel like they were seen and heard. The kids that would come and visit, made sure that they, knew that I knew them by name, and I knew what their favorite cartoons were, things like that. It was all like these small, meaningful gestures that I made sure that I took pride in doing. I love that stuff. I really, really love doing that stuff. And it was from there that it kind of blossomed out into learning that I like doing that for everybody, and it doesn't have to be in a hotel setting. It could be people in my family. It could be people that I've just met that are friends of mine. It could be random strangers that I can tell just by looking at them, they need something to pick them up a little bit. They've been having a rough time of it lately. So for me, this divorce was painful and liberating. There was a lot about my psyche I had to heal. It was a lot about my confidence I had to heal back again. And it's weird and wonderful at the same time, because there is always this moment when you're single just before you meet someone where you feel like you're on top of the world. You like, confidence on 3,000, catwalk strutting down the sidewalk because you feel good about what you're wearing. You feel good about, the blue sky and the food you had and money in your pocket, whatever. And then all of a sudden, you meet someone and you suddenly want to cater to them and make sure that you keep them in your sights and make sure that they want to be around you and they want to see you again. And suddenly you slowly start curtailing who you are, to the point that you forget that it is your right to still be confident. It is your right to still do what you feel like doing within reason, so that it doesn't hurt the other person, but not in an obnoxious way where you're flaunting yourself or causing unnecessary drama, but you are exercising your right to be confident and stay confident. What I didn't do in my marriage was stay confident. Suddenly I was worried about, well, he said that he doesn't like this particular behavior, and I do have that kind of behavior that's like second nature to me. I need to stop doing that so I don't make him mad. How do I avoid confrontation? How do I avoid fights, unnecessary fights? I found myself doing things like, I know he doesn't like it when I make certain foods, or if I let the kids do certain activities before their homework was done, or any of those. Like, there's certain things that he just didn't like, right? He didn't like it when I went out to the store, went out to the mall too often. Even if I had the kids with me, he just didn't like it because there was a good chance I was going to run into somebody I knew. And so I would try not to do those things. But then, I'd want to be able to leave the house when I wanted to. I wanted to have that freedom still. Wanted to be able to go to the movies. I wanted to be able to have fun with the kids and not worry about, what he was going to say. And it was just little things like that that I stopped doing, that I felt like I was being dragged down for, like I was ball and chained up and I didn't have the freedom to do as I wished. So when I started doing those things, I realized that I was clipping my own wings to keep a relationship only because I had history in it, because we've been together so long. Like, why would I say, no, I'm not okay with this, I'm not happy anymore? You don't just fall out of love with people, right? It takes time. It happens over a period of time. So it took a while for me to realize that building that confidence back, the confidence I had before I met him, back to a similar level now, was going to take some time. I had to learn a lot about myself. There was a lot I had to reconcile. I had to go back and forgive the person that I was when I was in that marriage, because I started exemplifying behavior that was not at all like me. I became very, very scathingly sarcastic. I developed an acid tongue. I found myself cutting him down every chance I got, because he would cut me down too. The minute he started insulting me, I started insulting him right back, because I just couldn't take it anymore. I would start doing things like making it well known that I didn't need him in the house. that I could manage everything by myself. He was really not necessary for anything. Because by the time he came home, homework was done, dinner was done, the kids were in bed already. We had spent time together as a family, me and the kids. We'd watch, TV shows together or whatever, and they'd be in bed by the time he got home. And I was thinking that it was partly because I needed them to go to bed at a decent time, partly because I needed him to have time enough to spend with me without having to deal with the kids as well. I wanted some alone time. He didn't see it that way, and I didn't realize that. But it's those kinds of things that I would never have done before that I kind of did in spite of him. And that was very, very uncharacteristic for me. So I had to reassess who I was and how I could become a better version of myself. So the divorce, the act of leaving that country and that house, the reconciling the fact that I left two kids who really needed a mom, trying to accept the fact that I had failed in a marriage, that I had tried really hard not to fail, to understand that I had not failed anyone in particular, that I had done everything that I could to the best of my ability, and I felt like I no longer could affect change in those relationships anymore, and that's why I left. Understanding that one day my daughter is going to look at me and be like, yeah, but you took me from my dad, or you took me from my brother and my sister. I was going to have to reconcile all of that. What kind of mom does that? How do I keep them in touch with each other? How do I proceed knowing I did this on purpose? And that was really difficult. But these are the things I need you to understand. Whether it's a divorce or not, maybe it's a long-term relationship for you. Long-term could be as quick as a year. It could be as long as 8, 10, 20 years. It could be anything. Once you've spent some time with somebody, once you've gone through the motions of making space for someone else in your life where you take into consideration their needs and wants when you make your decisions, it becomes really difficult to untangle yourselves from their lives. It becomes the silence becomes very deafening when you suddenly don't have them in your life. It's the same with when you lose someone, like maybe someone passed on from old age, or maybe someone was sick and you're grieving their loss. Maybe it's a breakup. Maybe you're moving from one house to another and you're trying to find a new normal of how to get to work and what the schedule is like and traffic and, what's around the grocery stores, getting to know your neighbors, all of that stuff. You go through a period of grief, and the grief is normal. The grief is your immune system for your soul, your psyche. The grief is a necessary process for you to reconcile what was and what could be now. It's how you try to think about who you are now. What does all of this mean for you? Are you willing to forgive yourself for making the decision to change so dramatically? Maybe it wasn't within your control either. Maybe it was a change that kind of you were forced into and you have no choice now. And now you're trying to figure out, okay, what is the new normal? How do I go forward? And it's so relevant even now for COVID, because what was normal pre-COVID is not going to be even remotely close to normal post-COVID. There are so many things that are going to change, and the way we interact with each other, and the possibility of real racism again, the numbers in suicides and the reasoning behind why. There's going to be a lot that we need to reconcile, but I need you guys to understand, questioning who you are and why you did those things, understanding what that means for you as a person, all of that is normal. Part of that also, though, is that you need to give yourself grace to be able to forgive what you didn't know at the time, the mistakes you may have made along the way, and then allow yourself to test the waters in order to create this new form of yourself, which means you're going to make more mistakes. It means you're going to not know enough to make the right decision right now, but you're going to have to try something. So please, as you go through these changes, as you understand that, the new normal takes a new you, and as you try and figure out what that new you consists of, give yourself the grace. Allow yourself to make mistakes. Expect the mistakes. Even better, expect the mistakes. And see what's possible for you. Push the envelope a little. What was okay before is no longer okay now, but that doesn't mean it couldn't be better. So test the waters, see what's possible, and I really, really hope you find more excuses to be happy, more excuses to belly laugh, more excuses to spend time with people you really love, because all the time you weren't allowed to, right? So absolutely take joy in all of those things. Now, if you have questions or comments about anything I've said tonight, please drop them in the comments below. I do want to hear from you. But in the meantime, like I said, please give yourself the grace to grow, because it's important for you as you move through these new changes. All right, you guys, I'll catch you again soon. Love you. Bye.